Greetings to you. Today I'm introducing a video by somebody else. It's David Starkey, the eminent historian, who has rather fleshed out my shorties on the failings of the Chancellor of the Exchequer and her policies, which have been relatively 5 or 6 minutes. And David Starkey has had time and the presence of mind and the expertise to go into this in a lot more detail, and his video is 40 minutes. And I recommend certainly that you go the full 40 minutes if you have the time, but a lot of the main points are made in the first 15. It's a sort of scrutiny on economics that we should have from financial journalists who sadly don't have the wherewithal to do that. They're just not clever enough. In fact, to be brutally frank, they're not very good indeed in this country. And of course, they sing off the same Keynesian hymn sheet, money printing, modern monetary theory. So really, they don't know shit from clay, most of them. But if they also listen to David Starkey, they would learn much, as indeed would economics undergraduates. If you're an undergraduate at a university in Britain, I suggest you listen in, and you listen very carefully and you take notes. You will learn very much from this. He actually makes a point, funnily enough, how the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and it seems most of the front bench, had this funny nasal way of speaking. They talk through their noses, which indeed they do, but what he admits, of course, is that they're also talking at the same time through their arses. And he might also have been as ungallant enough to suggest that none of them on the front bench have any knowledge of pronouncing English vowels, A-E-I-O-U. It's New Year's Die rather than New Year's Day, and so on and so forth, worth listening to if you like a little bit of a giggle at somebody else's expense. Listening to it, I think you'll find it's very worthwhile, and it exposes the whole Keynesian modern monetary nonsense that's been taught now for relatively 3 generations now in our universities, which is why we're going down the lavatory big time in Western Europe and North America.
Now, believe it or not, you'll be astonished at the subject. It is Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Now, a funny story about our nasal Rachel. Have you noticed it seems to be a very common trait of Labour politicians, led of course by Sir Keir Starmer, that they all have terribly nasal voices. Anyway, this is going to be a funny story. There's 2 famous meanings of funny: funny peculiar and funny ha-ha. The trouble is, we've tended to treat Rachel, I'm afraid, as funny ha-ha. She's much worse. She's funny peculiar and funny dangerous. What I'm going to do is really to take you on a mystery tour. I'm going to explore a mystery. The mystery why there seems to be no policy in Labour. And it begins with Rachel Reeves. Now, you'll remember the reason you're all sort of vaguely tittering when you're not counting the gigantic hole in your bank balance that will follow from various tax increases. The reason you're giggling, of course, is really the only thing that's penetrated into the public consciousness about Rachel Reeves, apart from the nasality, is her fraudulence, the famous faked up CV, the CV that constantly presented her as an economist. 10 years as an economist at the Bank of England, followed by 6 years in the private sector as an economist. This whole building up, and unfortunately, she was exposed. People, I think, led by the wonderful Guido Fawkes website, began probing and asking the simple question. And it turned out, and it was neatly tabulated by the Times, that there were no fewer than 5 serious errors in her CV. She had been at the Bank of England not for a decade, but for 6 years. Much of that time she'd been away. She had been trying to train herself as an economist at the London School of Economics. She'd taken a Master of Science programme. Now, I was at LSE. I was indeed one of those who invented the master's programmes, and they are, let's be quite truthful, a little bit cobbled together, basically out of undergraduate programs, and essentially designed for people to acquire something that looked rather more impressive than simply a bachelor's degree, though essentially consisting of bachelor's courses, and they're graded differently. They're graded with distinction, with merit, with pass, and again, it wasn't a disgraceful performance. She came in the middle. She got merit, but not distinction, so nothing very distinguished. It's more serious when you actually look at her claims in the private sector, when she was working at HBOS, Halifax, Bank of Scotland, where again the claim that she was an economist, which had to be directly scrubbed, because it turned out that she was fronting essentially a customer relations department. And throughout all of this time, the basic comment was that our Rachel wasn't actually terribly interested in the job she was doing. She was interested in politics. So why this emphasis on Rachel as an economist? Why this inflation? I mean, after all, she did PPE at Oxford, New College, rather distinguished college. She topped it up a bit at LSE with a reasonable performance in a master's programme. But an economist you would expect has a knowledge of economic theory, has got a record of publications, may even have got a theory of their own. Well, this is what none of us noticed. None of us really noticed, because we were so busy treating Rachel as a joke. And the joke, of course, was further reinforced when it turned out that not only was she presenting herself as an economist, our Rachel was also an author.